Hello, this is the first in a set of videos where we are going to learn the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And it's really just to kind of set the stage, learn some basics, not get too carried away, but at the same time build something that looks kind of neat. And what we're going to build is this simple web page here. It has a bunch of flip tabs in here where you can look at the various UN sustainability goals. It's designed so that you can adjust the size and that image on the top changes. You know, nothing too fancy, but a nice entrance into kind of this world. So if you have no experience, you're good to go. We're going to go right from ground up, and this is the first, like I said, in a set of videos. Now, in this video, we're really just going to do some setup stuff. We're going to create the folder structure that we're going to use and the file that we're going to actually run this page off of. We're going to set up that file for some initial pieces, not too much there. And then finally, we're going to get the photos and prep them, because we have to actually do a little preparation for these photos before we can use them well on this site. And with that said, let's dive in. So I happen to have made a GitHub repository, pmiscu github.io. So this is your github.io repository that is automatically given to you when you get a GitHub account. So I'm going to be developing everything in here, so you can access all of the code that I develop simply by going to this site. So the first thing I want to do when I create my folder structure is I'm going to make a new folder inside my github.io repository, and it's going to be called activity 1. This is just because I'm going to do a couple activities in this way. Oh, let's rename that to activity 1. This way we can kind of group them together. So I'm going to now go inside there. And the first thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to create my HTML file. So remember, an HTML file is a file format that web browsers can read to display some information. So I just want to do this, but I'm going to do it using Sublime Text. So I've opened up a blank Sublime Text here, and all I have to do, it's really not too bad, is I'm going to take my actual pmiscu.github.io repository. I'm just going to drag it in here. And now I see I have activity 1, and if I click on this, nothing appears. So I want to create a file, and that file is going to be called UN Goal Step 1. So we're going to right click, new file, UN goal step 1.html. Don't forget this .html. People will often forget that. And I'm just going to hit enter, and there it is. Now, if for some reason you forget the .html, Sublime Text won't know that this is an HTML file that's meant to be loaded inside of a browser, and you'll have to just come down here to the bottom right-hand side and change the format to HTML, and you're going to have to rename it. The second thing we're going to make in here, we're not going to do anything with this quite yet, we're going to make a new folder, and we're going to call it images. And this is going to store all of the images that we're going to load onto this page. It's really good to start getting into the habit of organizing your resources now that you're first learning how to do this. Organization is key when doing any type of web development. And it just pays right now to develop good habits early on. So I'm going to group all of my images inside this folder. So now I need to get those images. So where do I get those from? Well, we're going to download all of the images that we need from the Sustainable Development Goals site under the UN. So if you Google Sustainable Development Goals download, you should get this site. And we want to download for use by non-UN entities, that is without the emblem, and we want to download the web files. So if you click this, and you'll see I've done this a couple times, I'm downloading this file, and this contains the web file, so the color scheme is set up so that we know that what we see will be valid when we actually post it to the web. All right, so it uses an RGB, red, green, blue color type. So now what I want to do is open that up. You see I've done this a few times, and I want right now the SDG icons, the square ones. So I'm going to take all of these And again, just so you see where I went, I unzipped it, I went in here, I went to the icon squares, and I want to copy all of those. So I'm going to copy all of those. So I can right click and I can say copy 17 items. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate activity 1, images, and I will paste all 17 of those in there. So now that I've pasted all 17 images in there, I now have access to them in my website. And sure enough, there they are inside the blem text. But one of the things with these images is that they're too big for what I want to do. So I am going to resize these images. And how am I going to do this? There's lots of ways to do this, but we're going to do this using Photoshop. But before I do that, I'm actually going to rename all of them just because this is a lot. This is a really long name and I don't want to deal with that. So I'm going to rename all of these so they're a little bit easier when I'm actually typing them in to my program later. So I'm going to pause the video and do that. Okay, so I have renamed all of these. Again, if you're working with a team, you'd probably have a discussion about what some renaming convention is. I just don't want to write as much every time. So now I want to resize these. And how do I do that? Well, I'm going to do that using Photoshop. There's lots of ways to do this. So I'm just going to open up Photoshop here. I've done this in the past. That's why you see all these other ones here. And I'm going to open, and I'm going to navigate to where those are. So on my desktop, activity 1, images, and here they are. And so we're going to open up goal 1. And now I don't have my bar up here, but if you go to image and you say image size, we're just going to resize this to 300 by 300. And that's all I want to do. So now I'm going to save it. And I'm going to close it. And now I'm going to pause the video and do this for all of them. Okay, so I have actually gone through and resized all of these images, so they're 300 pixels by 300 pixels. Again, I know later on this is important because some sizing I'm going to do, but one of the big takeaways here is that you're going to want to put images on your website, and it's really important that you make sure you get high quality images, because when you start resizing them, and if they're a low quality image, you're going to start to get, especially if you make them larger, the quality of that image is really going to suffer. So, and that's all we're going to do for step 1. We're all set to kind of move on to our next stage here. All I've done, I've forgotten one thing. I forgot to build the HTML content in my UN goals step 1. Okay, so let's do that. So how do I do that? I essentially open up that file, I put an H in there, and I hit tab, and that will auto-complete my HTML template. So this is a basic template that all HTML pages are built off of. They can look quite a bit more fancy than this, but this is a really great starting place. And the main thing you want to be aware of are the things called tags. Tags are a way of specifying content on a page, and you'll notice that you have what are called open and close tags. So here we have an HTML tag, and that's an open tag because it's just straight HTML. And this is the pairing close tag. So everything between this tag and this tag are contained in the HTML tag section. We have a head tag, and there it is there. And then inside that head tag is a title tag. HTML is pretty forgiving in terms of where you actually write your page content. But I'll tell you right now, you don't want to be writing actual page content in the head tag. The head tag is used typically for metadata, and even though I could write, content that we see inside here, I really don't want to. So we'll write very little content inside of here. We'll actually be writing some style CSS in this section. And then we have our body tag, and our body tag is where we put the bulk of our content. All I want to do right now is I simply want to set my title tag. And what the title tag is it will specify the name on the tab of the web browser. And this is going to help me keep track of my various steps. So I'm going to say UN goals step 1. So now when I save this, I want to take a look at what this looks like. So I'm going to go into my file folder. There's UN goals step 1, and all I have to do is double click, And there it is. And you can see up here that tag, UN Goals Step 1. And that's it. So in the next video, we're going to actually start to add some content into this page. I hope this video helped. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Take care.